All right, so today we're going to be working on dividing decimals. So when dividing decimals, your divisor, or the number on the outside, can't be a decimal. That number on the outside is always going to be the number that is second in your line, if it's in the line. So you cannot have a decimal there. You will need to move the decimal to the right until it is a whole number. You will move the decimal on the dividend, the one on the inside, as much as you did on the outside. So what I want you to remember and write this down, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Make sure you write that little note down, even though it's long. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Remember, in math, we are fair. We are lazy, but we always have to be fair. What we do to one, we have to do to the other. In the end, don't forget to move the decimal up to your answer. And make sure you still follow any integer division rules for decimals that contain negatives and positives. So we're going to go ahead and look at example 1. We have negative 0.5025 divided by negative 0.003. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to handle those integer rules. So I have a negative and I have a negative. Two negatives means my answer is going to be positive. So I'm just going to go ahead and line that out right now. I'm going to go ahead and find a place to make my division. So I'm going to use grid paper. So I'm going to set this up by choosing the division. So for example 1, I'm going to make my dividing house. The number in front goes inside. So 0.5025. The number behind the division sign goes on the outside. So that is 300. So I wrote mine backwards so it was easier and I had my place values. I also don't include the negative since I already handled that in finding my answer. So what it says is we cannot have a decimal on the outside here. So we need to move this decimal until it is a whole number, which means there is no decimal. It's all the way to the end. So 1, 2, 3. I have to move that 3 times. Which means I have to move the decimal inside 3 times because what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So I'm going to move this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Where I stop, I drop it. I'm also going to put it up top. So that is the new placement for my decimal point. All these zeros in front go away because they're just zeros. So basically now I'm working with 3 divided by this 0 out front goes away because you don't start a number with a 0. 502.5. You do not have to rewrite it. I usually don't. So we're going to go one number at a time with division. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. And when I subtract, I get 2. Bring down your next number, which gives me 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times because 6 times 3 is 18. I'm going to subtract and I'm going to get 2. Bring down your next number. Now we're working with 22. 3 goes into 22 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract and I get 1. Bring down my next number. 5 goes to the bottom, so that makes it 15. 3 goes into 15 5 times because 5 times 3 is 15. That gives me 0, which makes me happy. And my answer is at the top of 167.5. So I'm going to take that back to my page and write it in behind my positive sign. So that should be 167.5. We're going to go ahead and work on example 2. So we have 187.5 divided by negative 1.5. So we have a positive and a negative. So I know with the negative and positive, the integer rules, that I have to have two negatives before I can have a positive. So that means my answer will be the negative. So we're going to go ahead and set this up on our other page and make sure that we put things in the correct spot. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up with my division house. The number in front goes inside, so 187.5, and the number on the outside, not including the negatives, is the one in the back, so 1.5. Again, we cannot have a decimal point in our outside number, so we have to move that. I moved it one time, so that means I'm going to move this one time. Put my decimal down and put it up top. I'm going to rewrite this so I don't have all these scribbles. So I would have 15, my division sign, and 1875. My decimal point, I'm going to put at the very end because that's where I moved it to. Now that I've got this all set up, I can go ahead and start dividing. 15 cannot go into 1, so I can put an X or leave that spot blank. But 15 can go into 18. 15 can fit into 18 one time. 1 times 15 is 15, so I'm going to subtract. And that gives me 3. Bring down my next number, which gives me 37. 15 can go into 37 2 times. 2 times 15 would get me as close as I can with 30. And I would subtract, and I would get 7. Bring down my next number, which would give me 75. 15 is not on our multiplication chart, but I know 15 times 2 is 30. 30 times 2 is 60, and 60 plus 15 is 75, so that would be 5 times. So 5 times 15 is 75. That would give me 0, which makes me so happy because it means I'm done dividing, and my answer is up top of 125. Again, my decimal was moved, so it should be 125. So if we go back to that page, we're going to go ahead and fill that one in with behind our negative 125. Big thing with dividing decimals is you have to remember that you cannot divide with a decimal. You need to move your decimal place, and what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. After you get the decimal all situated, then you go ahead and divide like normal.